Hello all. Those who believe in naked eye cannot see this world, that is microbiology. Microbiology is the study of microorganisms. And in this session, we are trying to find out the major contributions and the history or the scientists who behind this word, who were once behind this word. So, the existence of microorganisms you can see in the religion of Jainism, in the Mahavira's teachings, that is in early 6th century BC, point out that there are unseen microorganisms. And Roman scholar Marcus Terenius Varro in his book also written about the unseen microorganisms causing diseases. And why we study their contributions. Here we are trying to study the contributions of Louis Pasteur, Vinogradski and Robert Koch. So why we are studying? There are epistemologists. They believe in rigid construction and application of settled principles. They are not supposed to change themselves. So these discoverers try to find out their own questions within and find themselves face to face with the problems itself rather than with somebody else. That is the peculiarities of these discoverers. And first we try to learn about the contributions of Vinogradski. He has got certain skepticisms and he evolved a method for the possibility of culturing microorganisms from nature. He is actually a naturalist and he tried to specify microbial function from the nature and grow inside a in situ condition. That is pioneer of investigating microorganisms in situ. And he has got contribution in the cycle of life. Today it is termed as biogeochemical cycles in the biosphere. Actually, he is the pioneer who introduced the cycle of life. From the nature, he taken out the bacteria and the possibility of culturing inside an laboratory condition. And with his major contributions in microbes and his papers in microbiology has led the term ecology. And chemosynthesis, that is the cycles of nitrogen, sulfur, iodine, hydrogen and methane, all are his contribution. And he have ruled out the functional role of microorganism in nature, that is concept of geochemical barriers. And the modern microbiology as part of natural science actually originates from Vinogradski's concepts. The contribution he provided for the biodiversity. In the Burgess Manual of Bacterial Genera, he contributed 15% of the genera or bacterial classification. Actually, he opposed the term pleomorphism and he introduced another term polymorphism. That means that organisms will change their morphology depending on the stages of the development. That is another epistemological concept about the pleomorphism he modified to polymorphism. He opposed the system based on phylogenetic data. That means the Darwin's and Linnaeus phylogenetic classification, bacterial taxonomy he opposed it, and he gave the term paleontology based approach for the classification of bacteria. At the beginning of the 21st century, the phylogenetic reconstruction based on the results of molecular analysis looks most reliable for all groups of living organisms, and therefore Vinogradsky's objection seems to have been overcome. That means nowadays we are using molecular taxonomy. These are actually evolved from his concept of Vinogradsky's concept. And the specificity of microbes. That is, microbes are specified in elective media and it is also specific in nature. Rather than culture isolated model proposed microbial community culture, and an important contribution is Vinogradsky's column, that is for sulfur bacteria. And we pointed out 5 suggestions of Vinogradsky: to give up using pure cultures everywhere, to avoid using collection cultures, to take the cultures in question directly from natural habitats, to avoid exposing cultures to strong stresses during isolation, as well as isolating on media to which they are not adapted, to search for an appropriate medium from the very onset of the experiment in order to cultivate only on this medium. These are the 5 suggestions he made. And the major contributions, the role of microbes in the whole cycle of life, as I pointed out first, and the Vinogradsky as the founder of a school, his only student, Omeliansky, in his textbook, Omeliansky's textbook, all the ideas of Vinogradsky's are pointed, and it was a domain. Vinogradsky's idea was domain in the Omeliansky's book. And his rule, everything is everywhere, and the environmental selects. Next contribution we learn about the Louis Pasteur and his thirsty in microbiology. He is a French chemist, was a French chemist, and microbiology considered the most important founders of microbiology. He is actually the father of microbiology. He first coined the term microbiology, that means an organisms which can be visible only on microscope. He is actually the principle of vaccination and microbial fermentation, and his name is now termed in a technique known as pasteurization. He is remembered for his remarkable breakthroughs in the causes and prevention of diseases. He is regarded as eminent microbiologist together with Ferdinand Kohn and Robert Koch. He has got the highest degree, that is the Legion of Honor, as well as election to the Academia des Sciences and many other distinctions for his contribution to microbiology. Today, there are 30 institutes and an impressive number of hospitals, schools, buildings, and streets that bear his name, a set of honors bestowed on a few scientists. The theory of spontaneous generation, that means the life or the microbes evolve spontaneously, he disapproved that. That means a contamination only can provide or only can cause a microbe to develop. That is, using his swan neck experiment, he disapproved the spontaneous generation of life or microbes. He proposed the principles of fermentation for preservation of food. He introduced the sterilization. Nowadays, we are using his method for sterilizing the utensils and this culture media in a microbial lab. That is, hot air oven and autoclave are his contribution. He reduces mortality from puerperal fever, and he developed vaccine against several diseases, cholera, rabies, and he was the founder of the Pasteur Institute in Paris. Early in his career, his investigation of tartaric acid resulted in the first resolution of what is now called optical isomers, that is in biochemistry. His work led the way to the current understanding of a fundamental principle in the structure of organic compounds. And the third scientist here we discuss about the Robert Koch. What is this guiding principle? That is, never be idle. He launched a new field of scientific inquiry, that is medical bacteriology. That is his main contribution, Robert Koch. While a student, he won a research prize for his study on neuronal innervation of the uterus. His contribution in anthrax. Anthrax, he isolated the bacteria and he elaborated inoculation studies in mice, rabbits, dogs, frogs, and birds. Inoculating a mouse with blood from a sheep that died of anthrax caused the mouse to die the following day. Here, his contribution led to the course postulate. That is, inoculating a mouse with the blood from a sheep that died of anthrax caused the mouse to die the following day, and he inoculation of second mouse with the splenic blood from the first mouse produced the same result. This is how he formulated the Koch postulate. He has contribution in technological progress. That is, the microorganisms are transparent and they are very difficult to see. So he used certain dyes and stained them so that it can be visible. That is by applying aniline dyes using fusion safranin. Now the gram stains are his contribution. Safranin and the methyl violet. He could see bacteria more easily and detect subtle morphological traits. He became the first physician to use an oil immersion lens, the first to use a condenser, and the first to publish photographs of bacteria. He distinguished various disease states, septicemia, gangrene, abscess, at the microscopic level. He worked to develop his plate technique for generating pure culture of bacteria. This technique would be one of his greatest contribution to bacteriology, that is, generating pure culture which were essential to the study of bacteria. So contamination is sometimes a severe problem that we cannot able to study a single bacterium, so that we require a pure culture, were difficult to obtain by conventional means. So he generated how to culture a pure form of bacteria. That is, development of solid culture media was a major turning point. He began by observing fungal colonies growing on a slice of potato, and in it the bacteria would multiply to form visible colonies. That is how he developed his studies. Koch's paper became the Bible of bacteriology, and he has got contribution to tuberculosis. That is, he discovered the tubercle bacillus by counterstaining with a gliss methylene blue and a brown counterstain, and in that way he looked into the microscope and tried and found the tubercle bacillus which is associated with the tuberculosis. And his cholera is a major contribution of this Robert Koch. That is, cholera is a pandemic that occurred in Calcutta. To that end, he was traveled to Calcutta and he collected the water sample from the canals and he filtered that water sample and he analyzed in the microscope, and he also examined the intestinal mucosa of the deceased, and he compared the similarity and he observed that the cholera is responsible for the pandemic situation in Calcutta, and while going back to his place, he suggested to the government to clean all the canals so that the cholera pandemic can be eliminated. That is how he contributed to cholera in our Asian countries. And there is always rivalry, Course versus Pasteur, that is between French and German. One is chemist and another is physician. One protests individual by immunization, that is Pasteur. He said protects the individual by immunization, by vaccination. But Robert Koch through better hygiene and public health. Although the rivalry delayed acceptance of the coarse culture techniques in France and Pasteur's rabies vaccine in Germany, French and German competition was there. An intense desire to garner the highest accolades of scientific achievement led to indisputable accomplishment that would outlive the rancor. Thank you.